of debates over the nation's budget are happening in Washington. What arguments are coming from both sides of the aisle? In today's cover story, Facebook prices in after the close tonight what investors are expecting from that long-awaited IPO. Plus, the Avengers rakes in a cool $1 billion. We'll find out what box office records have been shattered and why recent IPOs are on the rise. A look at the Facebook effect is just ahead as First Business starts right now.
You're watching First Business. Financial news, analysis, and today's investment ideas.
Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, May 17th. I'm Angela Miles, and our first look, it's beginning to feel like Groundhog Day. Stocks sold off again yesterday on concerns over Europe, and fund managers are still taking profits in gold and in oil. Southwest Airlines is pushing back deliveries of 737s from Boeing. The airline is Boeing's biggest customer for single-aisle jets. The jet maker says it won't hurt the Boeing numbers. Facebook is expected to price in its IPO after the close and open for trade Friday. The final price could reach $45 per share. The Wall Street Journal reports Facebook asked some of its early investors to sell more of their holdings. Time now for Trader Talk with Ben Lichtenstein of TradersAudio.com as he takes a look at what might happen today. And a lot of concern is growing over people in Greece who are taking money out of banks.
Yes, we have been seeing a lot of concern, obviously, with the all over across the board, the whole European economic sector. Again, for the most part, we've been seeing heightened concern, and you can attribute to a lot of the activity that we're seeing in the downside in the stock indices futures products over the last couple days, attributable to that specifically. Yesterday, we had news coming out of Greece, the fact that the ECB wasn't going to fund them. And again, the market just sold off with high energy in the S&Ps. It was right through that 1334 level. And at that point, the market was actually trying to catch a little bit of a bid. It was early in the morning session, had come off some extreme lower levels in the overnight session, that 1320 level. But once we saw the breach of the 1334 level, which again was attributable to that news from the ECB, it was basically off to the races to the downside. And then we closed them out on the low print today. So there's a lot of concern out there amidst the European crisis.
And what do you think about the continuation of the gains in the dollar?
Oh, I think it's huge. There's a couple traders that I've heard it put very well, and I think they're referring to it as the nicest house in a bad neighborhood, if you will. Again, I don't think there's anybody sitting around going that the dollar's a great safe haven right now necessarily, but I think compared to, and when you look across the board at some of the other potential areas to rest your money, you have to kind of lean on the dollar. And if you look at that, we're starting to see that flight to quality in the bonds. They made it back up to the 147 handle yesterday. They traded up above it to 147.02. So that seems to be the sentiment across the board right now. There seems to be this, just again, flight to some sort of security, some sort of safety.
Ben Lichtenstein of TradersAudio.com. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you. My pleasure.
In our cover story, Facebook's expected to be the target of a flash mob today. Privacy activists in New York and San Francisco plan giant conga lines to mock how users of the social media site can be followed as Facebook sells user information to advertisers. This comes just before Facebook's expected IPO, which is gaining interest from potential investors, but also questions about how long it may take to produce dividends. To many, Facebook is full of potential. Take the Arab Spring last year in Egypt.
The opportunity for Facebook to make money is huge. I think if Facebook can ignite a revolution in Egypt and change the world, if it has that much influence, it has the opportunity to ignite sales for companies.
But just how to do that, according to David Robjohns, is still a big and expensive question. Robjohns' firm, MotiveQuest, tracks online consumer behavior. And while, yes, there are more than 900 million monthly users on Facebook, and your ad could be posted on a page in front of them, retail analysts say it's not that simple.
Millennials have got great filtering ability. And so when they're looking at a page, they're looking at how it was updated, what my friends are saying, whatever. All this stuff that's going off on the side and the banners and all the rest of that stuff, they are oblivious to that.
Instead of direct ads, consumers are seeking advocates, online word-of-mouth testimonials.
In the old days, you would have asked your friend what laptop to buy, and you might have bought that laptop on their recommendation. These days, you can access experts around the world and ask them what to buy, and their recommendation to you is now saved and shared in a social environment.
Robjohns says it produces results.
We've seen it in automotive, where advocacy might be 52% of the influence. We've seen it among liquor brands, where it's as high as 97%.
But advocates of another sort, privacy, are concerned.
They're going to sell an awful lot of information that they're gathering around people, and eventually people are going to wake up to the fact that, wait a minute, they're making money on my life. Hey, I want a piece of that action, and they're going to start shutting down their privacy settings in Facebook, so Facebook will have less and less information to sell.
In its SEC filing, Facebook revealed that 85% of its revenue last year came from advertising. Ad revenue is closely tied to collecting personal information and online activities from users. Meanwhile, insiders at Facebook are increasing the amount of stock being offered, as much as 241 million shares, potentially creating the third largest U.S. IPO in history, ahead of General Motors in 2010.
20 jobs at JP Morgan's London trading office reportedly may be headed for the chopping block. It's likely connected to the $2 billion the bank lost trying to hedge against market risk in Europe. No word on whether it will include the French trader called the Whale, who's known for taking huge positions in the credit markets. In the U.S., shareholders are filing lawsuits against JP Morgan Chase and CEO Jamie Dimon. In one case, investors are asking for damages after buying JPM stock in mid-April.
Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, JP Morgan is at the center of talks over the effectiveness of Dodd-Frank regulations. Lawmakers are considering whether tighter supervision of big banks is needed in light of JP Morgan's $2 billion trading loss.
Because of the JP Morgan Chase situation, we are again hearing from some of our colleagues that we need a law which will essentially prevent a business from losing money or taking risk. And no law can do that.
If there was one area that we learned from the financial crisis in 2008, was that the regulators did not have the tools to regulate complex, interconnected, non-bank companies.
JP Morgan representatives are expected to brief lawmakers in Washington about the strategy that caused the trading debacle.
A debate over the nation's budget is underway in the Senate. The U.S. debt is currently at $15.7 trillion. Republicans are refusing to raise the debt ceiling without massive cuts. Republicans insist they want immediate severe cuts to programs such as Medicare and Medicaid, along with tax breaks for the wealthy to dig the nation out of debt.
I've never seen a situation in which, in a time of crisis, this nation has had a failure of leadership as great as we're seeing today.
Democrats contend the Budget Control Act that became law last year already sets limits on spending and puts the U.S. on a path to reduce the deficit by $2 trillion over the next 10 years.
So now we hear from our friends on the other side of the aisle who continue to try to make claims that we don't have a budget. I guess if you say it often enough, people may believe it.
Meanwhile, President Obama is calling on Congress to approve a proposal to help small businesses.
T-Mobile is cutting jobs. The company said earlier this week that it will let go of 900 employees. It's part of a larger plan to cut costs as the company aims to rebrand. The job cuts are round two for T-Mobile. In March, 1,000 employees were let go. In a statement, the company said it's in the process of cutting costs as it plans to modernize its 4G network. T-Mobile is planning to launch the 4G LTE network next year.
Drug companies with promising treatments to fight cancer will be disclosed the first week of June. Genentech, Pfizer, GlaxoSmithKline, and J&J are among the companies expected to be highlighted at the upcoming American Society of Clinical Oncology Conference, better known as ASCO. Money manager Kurt Kellison of Ziv Investment cautions against buying into hype.
Unless you're a scientist and you have a real depth of knowledge with regard to these drugs, best not to lean too far in any one direction in terms of a portfolio, because these things can be years in the making in terms of the commercialization. Right now, using the models that I can access, GlaxoSmithKline would be the most undervalued in terms of its ideal intrinsic value, perhaps by at least $10 a share.
It's estimated there are 900 cancer drugs in development. Most will never get onto the market due to lack of funding, safety issues, or failing to work.
Some retail stocks are seeing modest gains. Target raised its profit outlook for the year. The company reported better than expected first quarter earnings. Profits were up by 1.2%. Other stores, including Dick's Sporting Goods and Home Depot, also reported an increase in profits. Dick's Sporting Goods saw a big jump. Its profits were up by 53%. April's retail numbers held steady. Many analysts have cited the warm winter as a likely reason for the higher profits.
Well, people who bought Skechers toning shoes to get a fitter fanny are eligible for a refund of up to $100. The company claims shape-ups, resistance runners, and tone-up shoes could increase muscle tone and cause weight loss. The FTC is calling the Skechers claims misleading.
The wheels are in motion for a movie adaptation of the life of Steve Jobs. Writer Aaron Sorkin has been chosen to adapt the Steve Jobs biography for the big screen. Sony owns the rights to the film. The studio reportedly paid around $1 million for the rights.
On today's economic calendar, watch for the initial unemployment claims and continuing claims, along with the Philly Fed number and the leading indicators. On the earnings calendar, it's Gap, Sears, Prestige Brands, Walmart, Dollar Tree, and Cozy. Still to come, our movie critic breaks down how The Avengers is knocking down records at the box office. But first, we are in the midst of a housing market rebuild. What signs are pointing to that sector's recovery? Coming up next.
Positive economic data reveals some improvements in the housing market. Home construction was up in April by 2.6%. Over 700,000 homes were built last month. There's good news for mortgage delinquencies, too. Delinquency rates dropped to their lowest level since 2008. Signs that fewer homeowners are defaulting on payments. Fewer delinquencies could keep home foreclosures under control also as the market continues to recover.
Well, now for the latest on the landscape and home buying and selling, we're turning to Mo Vesey. He's president of the National Association of Realtors. Good morning to you, and it's my understanding you will be on Capitol Hill today. What's going on?
Hi, Angela. Really quite exciting day for us. We've got about 10,000 plus realtors gathering around the Washington Monument in an effort to pronounce to Congress that American home ownership is not just important to America from an economic standpoint, but it's important from a social and cultural standpoint.
What do you want to get out of Congress?
Well, we're asking Congress to maintain a position that they've had for a long period of time for all the benefits that accrue to real estate. That is mortgage interest deduction, and make sure that the GSEs are healthy and in existence, and make sure that there's a national flood insurance program. Do nothing now to a fledgling recovering real estate economy to make it any worse. Make sure that they do everything they possibly can to increase the opportunity for Americans to buy homes. See, we know that every 2 homes sold in America creates 1 job.
What's the latest with home buying and selling? Are people taking advantage of those ultra low mortgage rates?
Overbuilding in places like Miami and Las Vegas and Phoenix and Southern California have been gobbled up by not only investors but smart folks that understand this is a great time to apply that interest rate against a mortgage that they would be able to buy a house with. But more importantly, we've seen increases in home sales, about 1 to 1.5% appreciation in those sales, and a decrease in inventory. So things are looking a lot better and a lot healthier.
Are you finding that people who go for these mortgages and want to buy a home, are they actually getting access to the money that they need?
Interestingly enough, the National Association of Realtors has been talking consistently with the Big Four that provide over 80% of all the housing financing in America, Bank of America, Chase, Wells, and Citi, and they have all said the same thing. We are relaxing our standards. We anticipate a lot more activity in the final part of 2012. We think there's going to be a more robust real estate market in 2013 and 14, and so our retail end of the business is really getting geared up to access that opportunity.
I'm glad that you see signs of recovery. Good to have you on the show today. That's Mo Vesey. He's with the National Association of Realtors. Have a great day.
Thank you, you as well.
Still ahead, The Avengers is now a billion-dollar blockbuster. What's next for the superpowered film after the break? It only took 19 days in the theaters, 19, and The Avengers topped the $1 billion mark in ticket sales. Eric Childress, Vice President of the Chicago Film Critics Association, is here for movies and big money this week. Eric.
Most definitely.
It didn't take long.
19 days, and we're looking by just this weekend, it's going to be at $400 million. The Avengers. That's just domestically, but $1 billion overall, all time.
What are some of the records that were shattered?
Well, I mean, it's pretty much all the records right now that The Dark Knight used to have. Fastest to 300 million, fastest to 350 million, 400 million. It's shattering all those records. The second weekend, it made over $103 million, which the previous record was Avatar, the biggest film of all time. That was at 75 million. So that's how far the Avengers is going right now.
Let's take a look at what happened last weekend at the box office. As you say, the Avengers, a big winner there, bringing in $103 million. Dark Shadows at $29 million. Think Like a Man, The Hunger Games, The Lucky One, all under $6 million.
Yeah, we talked that the Dark Shadows I thought was going to underperform, and most films would be very happy with to almost make $30 million at the box office opening weekend. But movies that do not come into $30 million have a trouble making the $100 million mark, and this is sort of the second big budget film after Wrath of the Titans for Warner Brothers. $150 million budgets, so I don't think this movie's going to make $100 million, as we said.
You didn't even like the trailer on Dark Shadows.
Well, the trailer was misleading because it's advertised as a comedy, and anyone who sees the movie, although it has comic touches to it, it's definitely not a comedy.
Interesting weekend coming up. Here's what's going on. Battleship. Yes, it's actually from the board game.
Yes.
The Dictator.
Yes.
All right. And what to expect when you're expecting what you saw.
Yeah, it's not a good weekend to go to the movies unless you're going to see the Avengers, obviously. I mean, Battleship, Universal's big movie. This is a movie that actually opened a month ago overseas, so it's already made over $200 million, overseas. I don't expect it to do very well domestically. I hope American audiences are a little bit smarter, a little wiser to not go see this really bad movie. The Dictator, Sacha Baron Cohen, he's been out there advertising it. Borat and Bruno both opened very well. I think this movie will probably have about 25 million. It opened yesterday, so 5-day weekend, about 25 million, I think. What to expect when you're expecting? Lionsgate's trying to pull the Bridesmaids card this week, and even 3 of the actors from Bridesmaids is in the movie, based on the self-help book for pregnant women. It's a really, really, really horrible film that I think is still going to make about $18 million this weekend.
Is Hollywood running out of script material?
They must be. They're going after board games and self-help books, so it's really sad out there.
All right,
just go see the Avengers.
Eric Childress, Vice President of the Chicago Film Critics Association. Thank you, Eric. Just ahead, the Facebook effect. Internet stocks that are rising ahead of Facebook's IPO. That's coming up in Chart Talk. Andrew Keene, president of KeeneOnTheMarket.com, joins us now for a closer look at the Facebook effect. It is unbelievable. A number of stocks, Andrew, are getting a big bounce ahead of Facebook's IPO.
Huge bounce. If you look at these are the social media stocks. These are very heavily shorted. They've performed very poorly this year. But over the course of this week with Facebook IPOing on Friday, this is going to be very important. We see Pandora up about 25% this week. Groupon, which just had earnings, is up about 30%. Zynga's up about 15%. So these stocks have rallied really hard this week. I think this is like a huge short squeeze, and these things are still shorts.
And what do you think about some other names that could be on the list, such as perhaps a Google?
Well, this is what I was going to talk about. I wanted to talk about these social media stocks that I think these are all shorts, and I always look at opportunities to get shorted. I was looking at Pandora yesterday actually to get shorted. We have the 100, the 150, and the 200-day moving average are between this 1140 and 1180 level. I think this is a good opportunity. I'm actually going to look to get shorted today, and then I'm going to have a stop around 1220. And then I think the ones that will take advantage is Google, because they have the platform on the smartphone for advertising. This is the one thing that Facebook is missing. So I think Google is actually going to perform better. Also, another stock that's not in the mix so much, but is in the mix, is Apple. Actually, Apple's been performing very poorly this week, which is very interesting to me. But the way these stocks are, they have high growth. They also have high PEs and high valuations. I don't like to jump on companies like this. I think these are a dead cat bounce, and I'm going to look to be short them.
Andrew Keene, president of KeeneOnTheMarket.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have more on Facebook's historic IPO on tomorrow's show. Plus, the CEO of Hotwire will be here with tips on how to navigate the best deals from the Hotwire website. From all of us at First Business, thank you for watching and have a great day.